I am Nic Rohloff. This is the Heat Report by Chat Sports, and we have some interesting news to break down today regarding the NBA playoffs and the NBA draft. We'll showcase where the Heat stand with 1 week to go in the regular season in terms of play-in standings, as well as the NBA draft order update. And we're actually going to start with the NBA draft because going into the final week of the year, this is where the standings are. The Heat cannot get to the 8th seed anymore in terms of the draft order. The Spurs are 3 games up. It would take the Heat to lose out, the Spurs to win out. That's simply not going to happen. But the Heat can climb all the way up to 9th. The Trailblazers currently hold that spot, and the Heat are a half game back of them. They're tied with the Phoenix Suns. That pick goes to Houston, but you have to worry about the Suns' record for the final week. They're tied at number 10 right now, both half a game back of Portland at number 9. And then you saw that Chicago was right there at number 12, a full game back of Miami. But also remember, the Bulls have the tiebreaker over Miami because they've only played twice this year. The Bulls have won both times. So even if the Heat win this upcoming Wednesday against the Chicago Bulls, the Bulls will still have that tiebreaker. All right, we're going to continue to look at the schedules and how things will ultimately shake out, in my opinion. But we have to show an update on our April-like leaderboard. We are in 4th place out of our top NBA channels. We trail Knicks now by 1,000 likes. Celtics today by 300. Warriors today by just about 100. Luckily, we're beating 76ers now. But hit that thumbs up icon to help us climb this Chat Sports NBA April-like leaderboard. And when you look at those NBA draft order standings, I have been someone rooting for a better draft pick because the Heat need to infuse a lot of young talent to this roster. And there are just so many good players in this draft class to where if you guarantee yourself a top 10 pick, you will come out of that late June draft a very happy fan and a very happy organization. Or you can somehow win the lottery and climb even higher inside the top 4 or by the miracle of the higher powers, the number 1 overall pick to get Cooper Flagg. So with the Heat locked into the play-in, they can't fall out of the play-in. They can't get to the playoffs without going through the play-in. You might as well finish as the 10 seed, get the highest draft pick possible, and see where things go from there on out, right? Well, here is a postseason seed update from the NBA on Monday, April 7th, before the Heat's game against the Philadelphia 76ers. They can't actually climb higher than the 8th spot. So they are locked in at least to a road game at one point in the play-in. Because if they finish as the 10, they would go on the road against the 9. And if they won that game, they would go on the road to the loser of the 7-8. Now, if they climbed up to the 8th seed, all it would take is one game to make the playoffs if they would win that first play-in game. But if they did become the 9 seed, they would host a play-in game against the 10 seed. And then if they won that game, they would be the road team in that next game. So either way, the Heat can't get above the 8th spot. So you might as well finish as 10 because it's just unlikely that you win 2 games to make the playoffs. But let me know your thoughts on the matter. Do you want the Heat to ultimately end up as the 10 seed? To me, it's a no-brainer. You're still going to be in the play-in regardless. Yeah, you have to win 2 games instead of 1 to make the playoffs if you finished at the 8th spot. But get the best draft pick possible. I'll explain why in a little bit. But I did want to look at the Heat's remaining schedule here. 4 games left. We're filming this on the Monday before the 76ers game. The Heat play 4 bad basketball teams. 76ers, Bulls, Pelicans, and Wizards. The Heat are coming off 2 straight losses to the Memphis Grizzlies, that heartbreaking one against Ja Morant, and then an overtime loss at home against the Milwaukee Bucks. If you are the Miami Heat, I think you need to go 2-2 here. 2-2 probably guarantees you the 10th spot. 2-2 also might be able to be bad enough to climb ahead of the Phoenix Suns in terms of the draft spot and end up with the number 10. And maybe Portland gets hot in the final week of the year and you climb up to number 9 and have the best of both worlds. I know the Heat schedule is very easy, but to me, there might be a benefit of resting Hero and Bam this week. Go 2-2, borderline 1-3, and see where things stand in the NBA draft. Now with the Bulls, this is the team that the Heat are 1 spot behind in the Eastern Conference standings, but just 1 game ahead of in the NBA draft standings. They have a relatively interesting schedule because they play Cleveland on Tuesday. That's probably a loss, but then they play the Heat, Wizards, and Sixers. And to me, when you look at the Bulls and look at how they've been playing over the past couple of weeks, they're coming off a 14-point win against the Charlotte Hornets on the road. I think they go 2-2 at worst. Like, there's just, to me, no chance that they lose to both the Wizards and Sixers the way they're playing. So even if the Heat were to beat the Chicago Bulls on Wednesday, due to the tiebreaker that Chicago has over Miami, as long as they win the final 2 years of the or 2 games of the season, the Bulls are going to end up higher than the Heat, which means you don't really have to be concerned about the Heat jumping the Bulls unless the Heat went 4-0 and then Chicago went 2-2. So assuming the Heat lose one of those games down the stretch, hopefully to the Bulls just guarantee the fact that they won't jump them. That is where things are going to be standing, at least with Chicago and Miami. All right, we'll look at Portland and Phoenix here in just a second. But we are sponsored by Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports platform. I play them every single day. Join me and the millions of others on Prize Picks right now, where you can combine so many different players from different sports, whether it's college basketball, professional basketball, baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. They invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. They have weekly promotions like Flex Friday, Taco Tuesday. For example, Taco Tuesday, well, Prize Picks discount select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. I have an entry for the college basketball championship game, 4-player entry here that could win 8.5 times my money, less than Alex Condon, 8 points, more than Emmanuel Sharp, 1.5 3-pointers made, more than Jawan Roberts, 19.5 points and rebounds, and then more than Elijah Martin, 12.5 points. That's my 4-player entry. You could join me, take those picks, take other celebrities' picks on the promos tab. But either way, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, as we look at the Phoenix Suns' remaining schedule, this one gets a little bit more dicey because they play Golden State and Oklahoma City on a back-to-back this Tuesday and Wednesday, and I don't feel optimistic about the Suns getting a win there. Now, I do think they'll ultimately beat the Spurs at home on Friday night because the Spurs are in tank job, and I think Phoenix gets the job done there, but that one against the Kings on Sunday might ultimately depend if the Heat jump them in the draft order or stay behind them. The Suns suck. I can't believe I'm saying this at this point in the year, but the Phoenix Suns are a horrific basketball team. Bradley Beal looks like a shell of himself. Devin Booker is not the same this season. And KD, even when he's on the floor to create that quote-unquote big three, they're still not a good team. I don't know what went wrong with the Phoenix Suns. We know they're going to blow it up this upcoming offseason. But either way, I expect them to go 1-3 down the stretch of the season. So I don't really think the Heat are going to be able to jump the Suns, unfortunately. So the Heat will be picking behind either or the Rockets in the NBA draft if they don't make the NBA playoffs. Now, Portland's an intriguing one because we mentioned that the Heat might be able to jump them because they are just a half a game ahead of the Heat. They've only got 3 games left. They play the Jazz on Wednesday, then the Warriors on Friday, Lakers on Sunday. The Blazers are actually playing a little bit of a good basketball. Portland, can you give me 2 wins out of 3 here? That would be absolutely terrific. I think they'll beat the Jazz, no problems. Can they split against Golden State in Los Angeles? The Lakers might have their drafts or their playoff spot clinched going into that final game, so maybe they rest players. And then the Warriors. That would be a double whammy for Miami. Portland goes 2-1, beating the Warriors and the Jazz. The Heat might be able to jump Portland in the NBA draft standings, but also you could help your own pick in terms of Golden State because you get their selection in the draft from the Jimmy Butler trade. Well, now we're talking good business here. So Portland, can you do me a favor? I know we've had bad blood in the past, but give me a win against Utah and give me a win against Golden State, and I'll be sitting pretty with a smile on my face. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we will have you covered on the final day of the year. On Sunday, when the Heat's game goes final with the Washington Wizards, we will have a very clear update on the NBA draft standings, the play-in. So on Sunday, we'll have a watch party. We'll have a video after the game looking at who the Heat will play in the play-in, the draft order. We'll have it all. So hit that sub button, join the channel. We're 500 away from 21,000. Now with the Miami Heat, this is kind of where things stand in my opinion. After talking a lot about the draft, the schedules for each individual team, the Heat have looked like a different ball club ever since they beat the Warriors at home by what felt like a 40, 50 points, and they got the revenge they were looking on Jimmy Butler. They look like a capable team that could win 2 play-in games and ultimately be an 8 seed in the playoffs, playing the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. But on the off chance that they stumble, whether it's against the Chicago Bulls in the first game or the loser of the Atlanta Hawks Magic game, assuming that finishes 7-8, why wouldn't you want the Heat to lose, end up getting a better draft pick? Because remember, what happens in the play-in does not impact the draft order unless you make the playoffs. Even if the Heat win a play-in game but lose the second one, that pick they have will go back to how it ended in the regular season. So to me, I think it's a no-brainer. Rest Bam and Hero for the final week of the year. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Bam's banged up with a back contusion. Hero missed the game against the Bucks with a contusion in his lower leg. Just rest the two, because if you want to make the playoffs, then that's fine. Hero and Bam should get a week worth of rest, to be ready to go for the play-in. And if you somehow lose, well, then the rest and the losses you'll pile up this week will help you in the draft. It's a win-win. I know it's not in the business of tanking or resting players that the Miami Heat, they don't do that. But to me, they absolutely should be doing it this week. Do you agree with me? Make the call. Should the Heat rest Tyler Hero and Bam for the final 4 games of the season against 4 bad teams in the 76ers, Bulls, Pelicans, and Wizards? Type R for rest or type P if you think they should play. All right, so here's another added intrigue here about the NBA playoffs, draft picks, and stuff like that. I think this is something we haven't talked about. We have talked about a lot about having a potential top 10 pick, winning the lottery, getting in the top 4 for Ace Bailey, Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, Kasper Siakachona. Sure. That's all fun and games. I'd love to add one of those prospects. But if the Heat miss the NBA playoffs, guys, they will have 4 tradable first-round picks on draft night. They will. Because even though the deferments go to 26 and 28 unprotected to Oklahoma City and Charlotte if the Heat miss the playoffs, on draft night, they'll have their own pick in the lottery. They'll have the Warriors pick in the late teens to early 20s, and then you'll have 2030 and 2032 to trade. So if you are someone that wants to trade for a star to add with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, the Heat would have an unbelievable trade package if they miss the playoffs. 4 tradable first-round picks on draft night, plus young guys like Jaquez, Jovic, Kel'el Ware potentially, if they wanted to go big fish hunting. Like, I'm talking big young fish hunting. They would also have easy, good tradable contracts like Duncan Robinson, Andrew Wiggins, Terry Rozier on a final year. So if one of these guys became available, like Kevin Durant, John Morant, Trae Young, or someone bigger or better, like a Anthony Edwards, or you never know who's going to ask out, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Heat would have 4 tradable first, young players, and they would be able to be in the mix for one of these top guys. And I know a lot of Heat fans think this team is playing better and maybe could make some noise in the playoffs. I think they could be a little bit more of a pesky 8 seed or 7 seed now than what I did 2-3 weeks ago. But the ultimate goal is winning a championship. That's not happening this season. The quickest way to a championship is acquiring a star that is that number 1 guy to allow Hero to be your number 2 and Bam to be your number 3. The only way to do that is to either make a big-time trade for a star or to draft one in the top 10. So to me, missing the playoffs is still the best-case scenario for Miami long-term. You will have an unbelievable trade offer this offseason to potentially acquire that number 1 guy via trade, or you will have 2 shots at a top-tier young player in this draft, whether it be in the late teens, early 20s, or inside the top 10. And this Heat team, Adam Simon in this front office, they're great at drafting, identifying talent. So you give them 2 shots in a really good 2025 NBA draft class, I'm going to feel good about the players they can add to this roster. So to me, I know a lot of people still want to make the playoffs. I still don't, because if the Heat want to win a championship in the next 3 to 5 seasons, I think the quickest way to do that and to make them more competitive in those years is to miss the postseason this year. And we'll have you covered for the final week of the season, so make sure you are subscribed. We'll have videos every single day in the offseason as well. Live shows return Wednesday. We'll be here Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel.